Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. The analysis for our breakdown today comes from a video titled, "This is Why AI Companies Will Never Live Up to the Hype." It was published by the Red Hawk Media Group, and it offers a pretty critical look at the current state of artificial intelligence. So let's just dive right in. The entire narrative around AI seems to be wrestling with this deep, fundamental contradiction. And it's perfectly captured by one of its most prominent figures, Sam Altman. On one hand, we're promised this utopia of unimaginable wealth. On the other, potential extinction. This massive tension between the promise and the perceived risk really creates a disconnect from what's actually happening. So to really understand this, here's how we're going to structure our analysis. We'll start by looking at this disconnect between promise and performance. Then, we'll dig into the actual data on disappointment. From there, we'll identify the key figures who are architecting the hype, explore why this is so dangerous, and finally discuss what a more realistic path forward actually looks like. All right, first up, the great AI disconnect. This is all about that widening gap we're all starting to notice between what we're told AI is capable of and what it's actually delivering in our businesses and daily lives. And you can see this disconnect reflected in public sentiment. This chart from the Edelman Trust Survey tells a really clear story. Public trust in AI companies saw a significant drop of 8 points in just 1 year, falling to only 35%. Now, that's not just a minor dip. It's a strong signal that the public is becoming more skeptical as their own experiences with the technology just aren't matching up with the marketing. And that declining trust isn't simply based on a feeling. It's really rooted in tangible, real-world commercial failures. So let's shift gears and look at the hard data that shows how this disappointment is playing out in the business world. This chart from a recent BCG study really lays out the commercial viability problem pretty clearly. Look at that. A staggering 74% of companies report that they are getting little to no value from their AI investments, and only a tiny fraction, just 4%, have managed to achieve a mature, high-value implementation. The takeaway here is pretty blunt. For the vast majority of businesses, AI is not yet the significant value driver it's been promised to be. An MIT study really sharpens this point even further. In 2024, an incredible 95% of corporate AI projects failed to produce any measurable impact on the company's bottom line. Now, why is that? Well, it's often because a pilot project looks promising but never actually scales, or employee adoption lags. But most of the time, it's because the use case was never tied to clear profit and loss metrics to begin with. The technology gets implemented without a truly sound business case. And we're not just talking about abstract statistics here. We're seeing this play out with major high-profile companies. McDonald's, for example, had to pull the plug on its AI drive-thru because of widespread errors and customer frustration. In a more critical setting, the MD Anderson Cancer Center shelved its program with IBM Watson after finding that its treatment recommendations were just too inconsistent. These examples really show the technology struggling in complex, real-world deployments. Okay, so if the technology is consistently underperforming, then where are these incredibly high expectations coming from? Well, the analysis points directly to the leaders of the industry themselves, what you might call the architects of the hype. Let's consider NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang. He markets every new generation of chips as a quantum leap forward, which of course implies that the previous generation is now obsolete. But at the same time, he argues that the company's older, rentable GPUs never actually depreciate in value. Logically, those two claims can't both be true, and it creates a confusing and ultimately unsustainable narrative. Then you have figures like Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic. He's made incredibly bold, time-bound predictions, like saying AI is just 6 to 12 months away from taking over a complex professional role like software engineering. When you make a claim that specific, you're setting a very clear, very high bar that everyone expects the technology to clear in the very near future. But here's the core contradiction. While Amodei is publicly predicting mass job replacement, Anthropic's own internal data, drawn from millions of user interactions, shows something entirely different. It shows that AI is primarily augmenting existing workflows. It's making people faster or more efficient, but it's not replacing their entire jobs. The public statements just don't seem to align with their own internal findings. And finally, we come back to Sam Altman, who has described AI as a revolution that goes beyond even electricity or the internet. By framing AI in such monumental historic terms, he creates a level of expectation that is almost impossible for any technology to meet. It inevitably leads to disappointment when AI functions more like a very useful tool rather than a force that completely reshapes the world overnight. So you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Isn't this just marketing? Why is this hype not just a problem, but a dangerous one? Well, this next section gets into the very significant societal risks that are at play. The real danger lies in deploying this immature, what you could call half-baked technology into incredibly critical areas of our society. It's already being used to influence decisions in hiring, medical diagnostics, legal cases, and even financial approvals. When the technology is unreliable, as the data shows it often is, the consequences in these domains can be incredibly severe. And to put a number on that unreliability, a Stanford study found that general-purpose chatbots hallucinated, which is just a nice way of saying they fabricated information, up to 82% of the time when asked legal questions. That is a staggering error rate. And it's exactly how you end up with stories of lawyers submitting legal briefs that cite completely non-existent cases that were made up by an AI. So the crucial point here is this. The ultimate risk isn't just that one loan application gets unfairly denied or one legal case goes wrong. The primary danger is a large-scale, spectacular failure that leads to a massive public backlash. That backlash could result in overregulation and deep-seated mistrust, stifling genuine beneficial AI innovation for years, maybe even decades to come. So, given all these risks, how should we move forward in a more responsible way? That brings us to our final section, charting a more realistic, more pragmatic path for AI. First, and perhaps most importantly, we need to reframe our fundamental understanding of what this technology is. Artificial intelligence is not sentient. It's not magic. It is, at its core, a statistical prediction engine. It's a very powerful tool for pattern matching and inference. Understanding this technical reality is really the first step toward using it effectively and safely. For organizations, this means adopting a much more pragmatic strategy. The advice is to ignore the headlines. Start small by identifying a low-risk, repetitive task. Test the solution in a controlled environment, and this is key. Measure its impact against clear financial metrics. And only then, only after tangible value has been proven, should you consider scaling it. And for us, as individual professionals, the approach is very similar. We should think of AI as a powerful assistant. It's great for tasks like brainstorming, creating first drafts of documents, or summarizing long texts. But we must avoid using it for final decisions in high-stakes areas like legal advice or medical diagnoses, any task where absolute accuracy is non-negotiable and the cost of being wrong is just far too high. Ultimately, it feels like we are at a crossroads. Will the future of AI be defined by measured, realistic progress that solves actual problems? Or will it become a story of hype-fueled failure and widespread disillusionment? The path we end up on really depends on our collective ability to be sober and honest about what this technology is and what it is not. Thank you for watching. This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you found this breakdown valuable, please consider using the QR code on the screen to buy us a coffee. And to help us reach a wider audience, please subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel. And be sure to like, comment, and share.